Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And today, it's our animal unit. We're talking about furry, lovable creatures that live on the earth with us. And today, we're talking about bears that are not common to Taiwan, but they are very common in northern regions. We are, of course, talking about polar bears today.
They're awfully cute. They're big and usually have white fur.But they live where there's a lot of cold weather and snow. And since we don't have a lot of cold weather here, it's kind of hard to find a polar bear in Taiwan. Although, I think I saw one in the zoo.
Really?
Yeah. One.
I'm not sure if the Taipei Zoo has a polar bear or not. I know, of course, they've got the panda bears there.
So cute.
And, of course, they've got a Formosan black bear. But as far as a polar bear is concerned, I'm not too sure about that. I think I'll have to make a phone call or go online to find out. But in any case, you know, if you really want to see a polar bear, you can go up to northern Canada, and there are lots of them around there. But if you don't have the time to head up there yourself, well, listen to our program and learn a thing or two about polar bears in today's program. So let's get to it. Let's listen to the entire contents of our lesson right now.
The snow-white polar bear can't be mistaken for any other animal. However, there are some facts about these unique creatures that you might not know. For starters, consider the creature's color. You might think they're white,But that's not really true. Underneath that thick fur, their skin is black. Their fur doesn't actually contain any white pigment at all. Surprisingly, it's transparent. In fact, the top layer of polar bear's fur is comprised of guard hairs, which help resist water and block out the strong Arctic sunlight. The white effect is produced because the hollow, transparent hairs,reflect light the same way snow does. When the sun shines strongly on them, the hairs shine brilliantly and look white. Another tidbit about polar bears is that they spend much more time in the water than other bears. Because of this, they are incredibly strong swimmers. They sit at the top of the Arctic food chain and feed primarily on seals. They catch their food,by waiting near holes in the ice. When seals emerge to breathe or rest, the bears attack. In summer, when the ice melts and the seals migrate, polar bears live on land and often don't eat for months. During this time, they live off their thick layers of fat. One thing most people know about polar bears is that there aren't many left, though it's hard to estimate their numbers,because of the remote regions where they live. They're classified as vulnerable by international experts. Climate change is a big threat, as melting ice makes it harder for them to catch seals and build dens. If you only remember one thing about polar bears, make it this: these beautiful creatures must be protected.Okay,
it's time for us to discuss the contents of today's lesson. It's our animal unit for the month of March, and we're talking about polar bears. Those, of course, are bears that live at the North Pole or in northern regions around the world, as opposed to brown bears or black bears or panda bears, etc. We indeed are talking about polar bears, and we're saying that they're mighty marine mammals.So they're mighty, which means they're very strong, and they're marine, which means they hang around water. They live in the ocean or they go swimming a lot. And a mammal, of course, is a kind of animal that actually gives live birth to its young and also feeds milk to the babies.
Right. So they're pretty beautiful, but they're awfully big. I've only seen a couple during my lifetime, and they've been in zoos.Because I'm never really up far north enough to see the bears. But anyway, this first sentence is one of our vocabulary phrases. Our verb phrase here is mistaken for. If you mistake something for something else, it means you misidentify or are confused about one thing and you call it the wrong name or think it's the wrong thing. For example, you might have grown up with twins in your school, and you might have mistaken one for the other. because you didn't know them well enough. Some twins are hard to tell apart, but others usually have something about them that you know which one you're looking at or talking to if you're good friends. So the snow white polar bear can't be mistaken for any other animal. You're never going to be confused about whether you're looking at a polar bear or maybe a brown bear or a grizzly bear. You know for sure you're looking at a snow white polar bear for good reason. It's the only bear that has that white fur. We're going to talk about what's special about that in a minute.
Yep, it's unique. It's one of a kind. So, of course, you're not going to mistake the polar bear for any other kind of bear. However, there are some facts about these unique creatures that you might not know. So we're going to talk about some interesting information, some tidbits of information. And so let's begin in the next paragraph here. It says, for starters, or to begin with, consider the creature's color. So starters here, we use that in the plural here when we talk about it in this sense here. If you've introduced a topic and you tell people that you're going to tell them things, well, when you introduce the first thing you want to tell them, you can use this phrase. For starters, or to begin with, what I'd like to tell you at the beginning is this. So for starters, if you go to a restaurant, for example, you might want to have a meal, but for starters, you might have some appetizers.
Right. The other phrase we often will substitute that with is first off. First off, I'll tell you this, and secondly, I'll tell you that. So for starters, why are they unique? Well, consider the creature's color. You might think they're white, and that's what I said, of course, because I'm not a polar bear expert, but that's not really true. Underneath that thick fur, their skin is black, which is really hard to believe. They must have a lot of fur on top because, wow, I don't see any black color coming through at all. If you say something is underneath something else, it's situated or located directly below something. So maybe sometimes you wake up in the morning and you didn't have a good night's sleep and you have black circles underneath your eyes, or maybe you have a bed that is raised off the floor and you can store things underneath your bed. When I had to clean my bedroom and I knew my mom was coming to check and see if I did a good job, sometimes I'd throw things underneath my bed really fast, hoping she wouldn't look, but she always did.
Yes, you threw them underneath the bed.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I lived in a small basement apartment that was underneath a nightclub. So, of course, it was noisy all night.
Wow,
that's why the apartment
tough.
was so cheap. But in any case, yes, it was underneath a nightclub. But here, underneath that thick fur, their skin is black. Interesting. I bet you never thought about that. And then the next fact here is their fur doesn't actually contain any white pigment at all. Surprisingly, it's transparent. Here we've got the word pigment. That just refers to some kind of material in plants or animals that give them color. Plants, of course, will have green pigments in them, so they look green and stuff like that. And, you know, we've got pigments in our skin to give us the various colors of the human race. But here, their white fur doesn't have the white pigment at all. It's actually transparent, like glass. Glass is transparent. Transparent means light shines through something, and then you can actually see what's on the other side. Don't confuse that word with translucent. That means light can go through, but you can't really see what's on the other side. You can't see any shapes or anything. That's translucent. But if it's transparent, it's like glass. You can see the stuff on the other side.
Sometimes ladies will wear skirts or dresses that are too transparent and you can kind of see through them, and you'll want to put on a slip underneath so that you're covered. But yeah, transparent, you can see through. So in fact, it says the top layer of polar bear's fur is comprised of guard hairs, which help resist water and block out the strong Arctic sunlight. A lot of them live in the Arctic, of course, where it's really, really cold. And most of us will never get a chance to go to the Arctic. So if you're talking about a layer of something, it's a thickness. Usually it's a thickness that could be maybe in clothes. Let me talk about clothes first. When it's really cold outside, you might want to dress in layers, which means you don't just wear a big, heavy coat on top of your clothes. You'll wear maybe underwear that's a little warmer, and then a shirt, maybe a sweater on top of that, and then maybe another coat, a scarf. You've got different layers that go one on top of the other. Or if you're making a cake, the top layer always has the frosting. So it could be a sheet or a quantity or a thickness of material or whatever you're talking about, covering a surface of something. That's a layer.
Right, so of course they've got different layers of fur there. So the top layer of a polar bear's fur is comprised of guard hairs. So here we've got the phrase to be comprised of, with the be verb there, makes it a verb phrase. That means it is composed of this, it is made of this, it has these things there. So the fur is comprised of guard hairs. There are guard hairs there. Hairs, little pieces of individual hairs there, which serve the purpose of guarding the animal from dangerous things. In this particular case, the guard hairs resist water and block out the strong Arctic sunlight. So, of course, because they have to swim, the fur there resists the water so they don't really get too wet underneath. And, of course, in the Arctic there, especially during the summer, the sunlight is really bright, so they need something to protect them so they don't get horribly sunburned.
Yeah, I bet that sun's really strong. When the sun reflects off snow, you can really get a bad sunburn. Those of you who have gone snow skiing know about that. Wow, you can get really sunburned snow skiing. Oh, it's bad. Well, the white effect is produced because the hollow, transparent hairs reflect the light the same way snow does. Aha! So if something's hollow, it's empty inside. Sometimes you might come upon a tree and the trunk looks like it's solid through, but then you take a closer look and it's hollow inside. Maybe some animals are living inside that tree trunk. What else can be hollow?
Well, I'm thinking of Kongxin here in Taiwan. It's hollow on the inside with some of the pieces there.
Or sometimes you'll get chocolate pieces, maybe a Santa that's made of chocolate, but you bite into it and it's hollow inside. It doesn't have anything inside, yeah.
Yeah, my chocolate Easter rabbits were always hollow.
Yeah.
And we've also got the word reflect here. That just means you move light off of something. When the light hits it, it goes off it again like
Bounces
a mirror.
back.
Reflects light.
Yeah.
And when the sun shines strongly on them, the hairs shine brilliantly or brightly and look white in the Arctic sunlight. So there you go, just in case you wanted to know, their fur isn't actually white. It actually is hollow on the surface there. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's listen now to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina. 我们今天要看的主题呢是北极熊。首先来看到第一个空格的句子。However, there are some facts about these blank one creatures that you might not know. 在这里介绍的是北极熊，它是一种怎么样的动物呢？从句子的结构里来看，它需要一个形容词。那么后面的文章阅读起来，你会发现它是一个很奇特的动物。所以呢，看到后面的文章，你就可以回来作答第一题的标准答案，就可以选择 J unique， 也就是有独特的、奇特的意思。第二个空格，我们直接从空格开始看。It's transparent， 它是透明的。前面的文章提到呢，这个北极熊的毛皮其实根本不含任何白色的色素，然后我们需要一个转成词，后面提到 It's transparent， 它是透明的。既然不包含白色的色素，却是透明的，所以是非常令人惊讶的。搭配文意，第二题我们可以选择 K 选项 surprisingly， 解释成为令人惊讶的事。接着第三个空格，我们在这里介绍的呢，是它的最外层的毛皮是由卫毛所组成。什么是 guard hairs？ 后面说明 which help resist water and blank 3 the strong Arctic sunlight。卫毛可以帮助它们防水，并且怎么样强烈的北极阳光。阳光太强烈，对皮肤并不好，所以必须要靠这些呢卫毛来阻挡强烈的北极阳光。搭配文意，第三题就可以选择 F 选项的 block out， 就是有阻挡、挡住的意思。 第4个空格的句子写着 When the sun shines strongly on them, the hairs shine blank for and look white. 当这些太阳呢强烈的照在他们身上的时候，这个毛发就会 shine， 它呢会照耀起来，看起来是怎么样的，然后呢看起来就是白色的样子。我们需要一个副词来修饰这个动词 shine， 那么呢看起来闪闪发亮，所以是白色的。我们搭配文意可以选择 B 选项 brilliantly，当作副词就可以解释成为明亮的，或者是有光泽的，闪闪发亮的意思。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, so we're talking about some basic information about polar bears here. So first of all, we talked about the fact that their skin is black underneath all that white fur, but hey, that fur is actually not white. We're talking about the fact that it looks white because light just reflects from the guard hairs on the surface there. And those hairs are actually hollow, so you never knew that before. I didn't know that before either.
No.
They're not actually white, which is kind of like snow. Snow itself is not actually white. The white light just reflects off through those crystals there. I think snow crystals are basically clear like ice. But in any case, we're going to move on now and find out some other tidbits of information. Here in the 3rd paragraph, it says, another tidbit, or a little bit of information here, another tidbit about polar bears is that they spend much more time in the water than other bears. Yeah, I did know that polar bears do a lot of swimming, but I guess they swim the most of all the bears in the world. They are good swimmers. Other bears maybe swim a little bit, but polar bears swim a lot more than they do.
Yeah, I've seen grizzly bears swim in rivers, in the mountains, but usually it depends on where they live. And you would expect the polar bears to swim a lot because they're located close to the ocean. So, yeah, tidbit, as Tom said, is it's a little piece of information. It could also be a word to describe a small, tasty bit of food that you're eating. So, he told us a really interesting tidbit. Could be some gossip that you've heard. Anyway, they spend much more time in the water. And, of course, you would assume they would be really good swimmers because of it. They're incredibly strong swimmers. They sit at the top of the Arctic food chain. When you talk about the food chain, you're talking about some of the most strongest animals as opposed to the weakest animals. And of course, the strongest animals are always the ones who eat the weaker ones. They're, of course, at the top of the Arctic food chain because they're so big. And I think the other animals just don't have a chance against them. And they eat meat, so they're going to be hunters going after other animals to provide themselves with food.
That's right. So I suppose the seals eat a lot of fish, and then the polar bears eat the seals. And so that puts them at the top of the food chain in the Arctic there, which, of course, is the area at the top of the world, the Arctic Ocean, the North Pole, etc. So they catch their food by waiting near holes in the ice. There are holes in the ice there, and when seals come out, when they emerge to breathe or rest, then the bears attack. It's not a very nice little surprise. When you come up through that hole, you get this big paw in your face, and you're a goner. But in summer, when the ice melts and the seals migrate, which means the seals go someplace else, polar bears live on land and often don't eat for months. So I guess they depend on those seals. They depend on hunting those seals during the winter. But during the summer, they got to be on the land there because the ice melts. So there's nothing else to eat. So what do they do during this time? They live off their thick layers of fat. Boy, wouldn't that be nice if we could also live off our layers of fat for many months. That's a good way to lose weight.
Yeah, it'd be great. It's interesting because their lifestyle is the exact opposite of the other bears, the brown bear, the grizzly bear. They will eat, during the summer and spring, fall, and then they'll go hibernate in the winter where they won't eat for a couple of months while it's cold. But these polar bears do the opposite. It's kind of interesting. So they don't have to eat during the summer, and they can live off their thick layers of fat. Lucky bears. One thing most people know about polar bears is that there aren't many left. We've heard, of course, through the news and reports you see on TV that we're losing some of our polar bears. The population is decreasing, though it's hard to estimate their numbers because of the remote regions where they live. Mostly people don't live where polar bears live, so it's hard to count them all. They're classified as vulnerable by international experts. We've got people who study animals, who are animal experts that help us learn more about animals out there in the world. And they've classified them as vulnerable. To classify something is to arrange something in a particular category or group based on some of the characteristics or traits that it has. So they're classified as vulnerable, which means, they're at risk of being extinct, which means there's no longer going to be a polar bear around on the earth. But other groups of things that are vulnerable would include children, senior citizens, people that need to be handled more carefully or could easily be damaged or hurt. So vulnerable, these are the international experts, of course, who are telling us this. We classify lots of things. We classify movies, books. For example, books might be classified as detective novels, romance novels, nonfiction, which you might be reading about history. This is just one way to classify the bears.
Indeed, and of course, we're talking about conservation status if we're classifying them in a certain way. So vulnerable is, better than endangered, and then eventually it gets up toward extinct. So, there is some cause for concern here because they are vulnerable, whereas some animals are least concern, probably like sparrows and pigeons or something like that, or cockroaches.
Oh, I was going to say cockroaches. You read my mind.
Yeah, we'll never get rid of those. They'll always be around.
Too many.
But polar bears are vulnerable, so we got to help out there. And climate change is a big threat, as melting ice makes it harder for them to catch seals and build dens. So, of course, we know climate change is going on, and the ice is melting in the north region there. So, of course, there are larger areas of water that don't really freeze up anymore in the winter. So it makes it harder for the bears to hunt those seals with less ice and fewer of those holes for the seals to peek out from. They can't hunt those seals, so that makes things kind of difficult for those bears. It makes it harder for them to catch those seals, but it also makes it more difficult for those polar bears to build dens. And here we've got the word den here. I remember when I was a kid, some of my friends had a room in their house called the den, which is kind of like maybe a study or something like that.
It's like a study, yeah.
But we didn't have one in our house. But in this particular case, though, a den is like a home for a polar bear that they build outside. And I guess they probably build these on the ice somewhere. So if there isn't enough ice, well, they can't build their dens.
Yeah, so den here, as Tom said, is used with people. It's kind of like a study. We call my dad's office at home his den. We actually use that more than we do the study. But sometimes people will talk about the study. He's in the study reading, or he's in the study writing a report. Here, these are wild mammals who have hidden homes. They put together a home where they go and rest and relax. So that's what they do. They build dens. If you only remember one thing about polar bears, make it this. These beautiful creatures must be protected. So it's something to think about. Sadly, we've got people going to all parts of the earth these days, and it's affecting the plants and animals in those regions. So if you're out there being a tourist or sightseeing, remember, it's up to you to try to help the native animal population where you are, and leave things the way you found them. Don't hurt them, and don't make it harder for those animals to have a life.
Indeed. So there you have it, a few tidbits about polar bears, just in case you wanted to know. But we need to know a few more things, so we need to hear now from our Chinese teacher.
接着我们来看到第3段，在这里写着北极熊呢主要是以海豹为食。第5个空格前写到 When seals blank 5 to breathe or rest, the bears attacked。也就是当海豹怎么样去呼吸跟休息的时候呢，就是北极熊攻击的时候。这些海豹呢必须要露脸，然后呢浮出水面才有办法呼吸跟休息。我们需要一个动词，第5题就可以选择 C 选项emerge， 也就是有露出或者是浮出水面的意思。第6个空格，到了夏天的时候 When the ice melts and the seals blank 6, polar bears live on land and often don't eat for months。当呢到了夏天冰融化的时候，海豹怎么样？然后呢北极熊呢会在陆地上生活，而且往往数月不进食。当夏天来的时候冰融化，海豹当然也就迁徙咯。那么第6题我们可以选择 D 选项 migrate， 也就是有迁徙迁移的意思。第7个空格 During this time, they blank 7 their thick layers of fat。 那么在这个时候呢，他们怎么样？然后是靠着厚厚的脂肪层。在这里我们可以在第7题选一个动词 I 选项的 live off， 也就是有靠什么为生。好几个月都不吃，就只好靠着厚厚的脂肪层为生咯。接着来看到第8个空格，提到关于北极熊一件多数人都知道的事，那就是 There aren't many blank 8。 其实并没有许多的北极熊怎么样。我们知道在后面的文章提到北极熊的数量，所以我们就可以推测其实并没有太多的北极熊是留下来的，剩下的。第8题我们可以选择 L 选项的 left， 在这里 VPP 表被动表示被留下来被剩下。接着第9个空格Though it's hard to estimate their numbers because of the blank 9 regions where they live。 在这里提到很难估算他们实际的数目，因为他们所居住的地方是属于怎样的地区呢？第9题需要一个形容词，可以选择 A 选项 remote， 在这里就是有遥远的意思，居住的太遥远了，没有办法计算。第10个空格的句子写着 Climate change is a big blank 10。 在这里提到呢，气候的变迁也是一个巨大的什么？在冠词跟形容词的后面我们可以放名词 H 选项的 threat， 对他们来讲气候的变迁也是一大威胁。 OK， 以上就是今天的课文讲解，谢谢收听。
Okay, that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and please join us again next time for another edition of our program. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.